More on feeding a baby parrot. Hi, I'm Kaylin, the author of the Parrot Bliss Bond, and in this early morning video, it's just after 6, we're going to do our first feeding. But what I wanted to do is do a follow-up to the previous video, how much should I feed my baby, or sorry, how often should I feed my baby? And I wanted to start by showing you what an empty crop looks like. This here is the area where the crop is on the parrot, where my middle finger is. And right now, it's empty. I like to use the metaphor of a balloon. Right now, we have a completely deflated balloon with a sleepy, yawning baby. Now, I started to feed the baby, and I stopped midway so you could see we've got a little bulge. We're starting to fill the crop. So how full do we want to get the crop? If we gently push on it, there's stuff in there, and we're going to get it to the point to where the balloon isn't quite so smushy. We want the balloon to be a little taut. It's better to feed a baby several times a day than to overfill the baby. If you overfeed the baby, they can aspirate. I don't know if it's like if they hiccup or, I mean, it's kind of like us. You can't overstuff yourself because it makes it hard to breathe and stuff like that. And it can cause you problems. So you're better off not overfeeding the baby and just getting them to the right tautness, which we'll look at in a minute, and then feeding them more times throughout the day. They develop better, I think stronger, I think happier, and certainly healthier. So let's put a little more in there. Okay, so now here we have the filled crop, and you can see that when I gently push, it's more full. And you can see the difference. We went from the crop being up against the body because it's the first feeding in the morning at 6 o'clock to being more round. And when I gently touch the crop, it's definitely more taut. So it's like a balloon. You don't want it so full that it feels like it's going to pop, but you want to feel like, it's full. It's holding a fair shape. You also don't want to overfill because they can aspirate. It's just like us. If you eat too much, you feel like your food's going to come back up on you and you're going to choke on it, that kind of thing. So the same is true for them. So it's important not to overfill. Someone had asked, can I use a syringe to feed just with the tip of the syringe? You can. They're not very good at it. Look at that. The ear, I think, is just starting to open. My camera's like, move back. You're too blurry. But that's where their ears are, and that's what they look like. And no, maybe it is starting to open. Maybe I see. They're born with their eyes closed and their ears closed. So they really like touch because they don't have hearing and sight initially. Parrots are messy by Mother Nature's design. They're messy, so with the tip of the syringe, they'll shake their head and the formula goes everywhere. I think it's worse, actually. I think the easiest thing to do is a spoon. And when they're older, even though they've got that beak there in the way, the spoon still works. The spoon tends to be the quickest and easiest. They do a pumping action, they move their head up and down, they bob their head kind of thing to swallow food. And with a syringe, you kind of skip that part, so they're not as active in the eating. A syringe, you should know, you have to be really careful. I've heard of pet shops training their employees for like 6 months or more before they trust them to feed their babies with a syringe. And that's because you're taking the baby's life in your hands. They can easily aspirate, which means that you put the formula down the wrong pipe, and it can kill them just in seconds. I don't know, if you get it down the wrong pipe, I don't know if it can not kill them. It's not easy, and therefore, I really, unless you're learning how to do it, unless you're being trained by someone, I don't recommend it. It's just really hard. So, what else? Let's see, let's do one more. Here's a parrotlet. And, and someone asked what I feed afterwards. So notice how there's no bulge, the way has a bulge now, he or she. And so the parrotlet I'm going to feed right now, but you can almost see it's almost concave. And so in a minute I will show you. He says, feed me. Okay, sweetie, I'll feed you. I'll show you his cropful. That's a green cheek conure. And I'm guessing he's going to be traditional because of the dark feet and the dark beak, but we'll see. And with green cheek conures, they're sexually monomorphic, so I won't know the gender unless I DNA. And with the parrotlet, I'll be able to see it on the wings, and my daughter's really good at telling. I'm not so good. But I think we're going to have a male. No, maybe it's a female. No, male. Because there's kind of a blue stripe. Do you see that blue stripe going down the wing? Right there? Like kind of where my thumb is? Okay, let's pause the video and show you a full crop. Okay, so now we have a full crop on what I think is this male baby. Sometimes they cry after you feed them, and I had to ask my mentor, I just fed them, why are they crying? They weren't crying before. And he said it's because the food's in the crop, which is like an upper esophagus, but it has to start to get into the body. So even though they're now ready, they're like, I'm still hungry. So in a few minutes, they start to get the food into their lower esophagus, or I don't know the technical term, but then they start to feel like they've gotten food, and then they feel better. All right, let's see. So when they are weaning, I start to offer them fresh vegetables, if I can, several times a day. And I start to offer them parakeet mix. And I'm comfortable with offering them parakeet mix because I feel like babies need some more fat. So I'm okay with that. They start to eat the fresh vegetables. They start to gain interest in the fresh vegetables. And it helps them start to transition over. When it comes to parrotlets and green cheek conures, it's pretty easy to transition them. The parrotlets, they start eating the fresh vegetables and maybe some millet and some seeds. And I also have pellets available, and I don't worry if they don't go for the pellets. I give them some time to adjust and go for pellets, like a couple of weeks, and I don't worry about it. They all acquire the pellets too. But initially, I feel like they need that fat, and so they just start eating more and more fresh vegetables and some of either the parakeet mix or the millet. All right, that is a wrap. If you have any questions about feeding your baby, please post below. Hopefully I got all the questions that I had been given before, and hopefully you learned some about the importance of still, maybe feeding with a spoon, just because you'd be so sad if anything happened to your baby. I'm going to let this big baby in the back, go back to sleep now. Oh, look at these guys. Thanks for joining me in this blissful video.